need to, yeah. So I can. All right, buddy. Are we at 8? Is it 7?
Yeah.
I want you to picture, if you will, a man whose entire hope and purpose is to relay information to people out in the Netherlands, Ireland, UK, New Jersey, places untouched and unspoiled by human hands or feet or spleens. But I want you to say that that man has gotten so used to doing an every Monday night, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time podcast. People come to depend on him. Matter of fact, their life is wrapped around that 7 o'clock revelation. But I want you to picture something so ridiculous, so notorious, that only a demon could have come up with it. What if said man was a professional magician at one time in his life and thus has a prop trunk full of crazy things, including neodymium magnets, which if you haven't had one before are so powerful you want to be careful. And what if that man was trying to move one of those neodymium magnets into a safe spot away from the other one, because God forbid the two should meet and clank. And in the process of that man, who you would think at his age and his experience would be very aware of not allowing anything untoward to happen to him, in searching for another little container to hide one of the other neodymium magnets, he actually waved one of them next to the other one unexpected. And that magnet pulled the other one from its hiding place, smashing on his thumb and ripping a giant hunk of flesh from that man's digit. In pain and agony, literally with a piece of flesh ripped from his thumb, that man continued his work. A lesser man would realize the podcast on money would have to be cast aside. A lesser man would say, I need some time to recover from the trauma. A lesser podcast host would flee from the fear, the anxiety, and the embarrassment of said smashed thumb piece, flesh ripped. Embarrassment, ridiculous, you gotta be kidding me, that's absurd. But a lesser man isn't sitting in front of you today. No, instead he's a podcast pioneer who's completely and utterly committed to bringing you comedy, conservatism, Christianity, combining in a cacophony of clarity. And so, even though most people wouldn't have made this trek, this man has assured you that you get to see another episode live on YouTube and Facebook of Brad Stine Has Issues. I'm here. Wyatt. Well.
Yep.
I am happy. I'm excited. Yes, I smashed my thumb. Yes, a hunk was ripped out of it. But nevertheless, Brad Stine Has Issues is here again on 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, brought to you by Christian Podcast Central, who always wants to put together and congregate the best Christian podcasts they can come up with for the price. And Glockstore.com, who can always re-engineer your Glock to make it even more effective than it ever has been before. Wyatt, how's your Glock? And I know in some countries that's illegal to say.
I don't know much about my Glock, but I can tell you that our microphone is absolute trash.
Which one? Mine?
Yours, yes. The second you move like a millimeter away from it, your audio gets halved.
Okay, so do I need to kind of stick it like in front of me like that? Would that help? Does that make it better?
It makes it a tiny bit better, but
I mean, there's nothing you can do from over there?
I have been adjusting this thing all day, but literally 1 second you will be like peaking the mic.
Okay.
And literally like not even a different word.
Okay.
The second half of one word, you will be inaudible.
Okay, so clearly, my friends, and if you're brand new to the Brad Stine Has Issues show, you need to understand that when I put this podcast together, little did I know that my son would be running the board. And I don't know how to explain this to him. I don't know how to say it to him, but everybody else's podcast doesn't have these issues. But Brad Stine has issues because of his son who issued from his loins.
No. You want to know what the problem is?
I would love to know what the problem is. I'd like to know why your mic is never a problem and you're just the sidekick.
Simple.
How is that possible that the sidekick who runs the board...
Hey, you want the answer? Because it's really simple.
Yes?
It's really hard to balance all of the microphones when you keep bobbing your head back and forth like some deranged bobblehead.
He's called me a deranged bobblehead. You know, folks, I don't know if you have children at home, but if you do, or if you're thinking about it, you might want to reconsider. They are constantly complaining, upset, and all I did, folks, was make the mistake of giving White his own button. And now look,
No. Your mistake was that microphone.
Well, I don't know what's wrong with this microphone, but apparently it's... Well, we're going to make do, folks. If you can hear me, God bless you. Matter of fact, let's test out the hearing. I'm going to go see who's out there.
Yeah, I just saw 2 comments saying your mic is terrible. So, I don't want to hear it anymore.
Okay, well, guess what? Nick Kress is back. He's #1 saying hello. Good job, Nick Kress. I love it when you're back because you were the guy that's always been back. You were the one that was always there in the beginning to show people what it would look like if you wanted to be the top guy that leaves a thread. Who else is out there? Well, we've got, I'm going to put on my glasses so I look like a sophisticated podcaster. It's Barb Malema who's saying howdy. Jenna Sizemore's here. Hi, Brad. God bless, brother. To Samuel Dyan. Paula Faye Marie Rauchi. Greetings from Floral City. She's there. Amber King's here. Saying hello to you as well. Josh Sipes missed last week, and he's coming back. Why? I've always wondered if Josh misses, should we just leave him off the podcast? Maybe there needs to be some kind of penalty box for those who miss a week. Maybe they need to suffer a little bit, see what a week without me is like, and then wonder if perhaps this is something they should make as a priority.
At the very least, we need to reconsider his Netflix special.
Amen. Good evening, brother, from Michael Sean Garrett. Hey, buddy. Who else is there? Gene. Sizemore, love one bit you put out when you were younger and the long hair. Yeah, we're going to talk about that today. Tonight, just like last week, I had a very special show where I visited James Dean's grave in Indiana, Fairmont, Indiana, where I'm from, Indiana, not from Fairmont, but from Indiana. And I have a very special clip I'm going to show you guys tonight. It's something that shows a little bit about who I am, where I've been, what I've done. It's an actual clip from Channel 4, Jules Holland's show, Viva Cafe 1992, where I show you what I did in London, England on Channel 4. But that's at the end. So you're going to have to sit through all the hard stuff, the heavy stuff, the meat-eating stuff to get to the crazy stuff at the end. What's wrong?
You're going to have to suffer through this insufferable microphone.
Yes.
This man decided was so important to have.
So is it still not being heard?
No. It's the same thing. Like you keep bobbing your head back and forth, and that thing is so sensitive that it's literally night and day when it comes to the audio.
Okay, how about like this? How about if I just stick my face right in it like that? Will that help, Wyatt? Does that make it better?
Let me put it to you this way. I may need to duct tape you to that microphone. So
okay.
Bob, because it's just your mannerisms. Oh, just really eccentric.
I understand.
And it's really playing havoc.
How about if I stay like this? Does this help? I can't get much closer unless you want me to actually swallow it.
The problem isn't how close you are. It's how inconsistent you are with how close you are.
Okay, well,
One moment, you'll be looking at the mic. The next moment, you'll look at the computer, far away from the mic, and it messes with the audio.
Well, listen, why don't we say hi to some of our friends, and maybe they won't notice. Guess who else is out there? Kit Kat Sparrow. Yoo-hoo! She's back, and she's as crazy as ever. Jason Koppenhaver. Let's see. Rebecca Daly is there. Stan Stinson. Hey, Stan Stinson. Hello, friends from Dusty Wilhelm. Rebecca Daly Driver. I mentioned her. Thomas Bench is here. Good to have you here. Clovis Jones. Hi, Brad and Son. Clovis Jones from Wayne, Michigan. Good to have you with us. Amilcar and Gutierrez. Hello, Amilcar and Gutierrez. But you're not a lesser man. Susan Metzger. Jonathan Hologoff is here. Cecily Brown. David Ayers. Brad is a funny comedian, but he's a nutcase. This is merely the rambling of a madman. Yes, it is. But how many people get to ramble as a madman and blame their son?
Hey, quick question. What do you think? Tilt your mic up a bit. I got a comment saying that might help the issue.
Like that?
Yeah.
Is that it? Good evening. Huh? Does that help? Is that helping you, son?
I think it's helping.
Okay.
I hope it's helping.
Okay. Gianna Sizemore reminds me of Mark Levin on issues. Clifford Kanji. I can't see, buddy, because I don't have my glasses on. But when I put them on,
Okay, that's
Cora Giuliano. What? You the man from Corrig in Redlands. What is it, Wyatt?
you were. I'm so. Were you complaining to me that you couldn't see it?
Right.
As if it was my fault.
No.
And then asked where your glasses were that you just sat down.
I know.
Also, something I just noticed about this board.
Yeah?
So you know the effects part of it?
Yes, I do.
Turns out there were presets.
Okay.
And I have no idea what any of these buttons do.
Push the button, Wyatt!
We are now in a fairy wonderland.
And now I'm going to give you insight that is going to pierce through your presuppositions and allow you to think and see things in ways you haven't heard before. Wyatt, hit another button!
Found the laugh track.
Ooh,
I found the laugh track. This is officially a podcast.
Woohoo! We've got a laugh track, and I can use it. I can't hear it, though. Can't hear the laughs.
I can, and trust me, they all average.
You know what Andrew George said? He said, just switch places and make it Wyatt's show.
I mean, at this point, they come here for me. Like,
Diamond Shoey says, how are you adjusting your Tennessee so far? Well, since this is year 20, pretty good. Let's see. Harold Thompson's from Tennessee. Russ Hirsch is there. Louis Leon. Hi, Brad and Wyatt again from Levittown. Yes, sir. Hey, there's Karen. Fondly snuck in. You are late, young lady. Circle Montana's here from David Butts. Keep your lips glued to the mic, bud. A.J. Baker. Hi, I can hear you. Yay! So the mic needs to be tilted up. It's a shielded mic, and the pickup isn't at the tip, but the side. Should I put it at the side? How about that? Does that work? Does that make sense? How about that, you guys? Does that help? Does that help or not?
Honestly, it's kind of hard to tell with how little time I'm getting to actually hear it. But
Okay, well, I'm just going to move it right
stuff's
there
happening, I
and
guess.
say hi. Well, anyways, folks, good to have you. Good to have you. This is God's Comic, Brad Stine. This is Brad Stine Has Issues, and I am so grateful that we've got some folks that have come on to say hi on a Monday in February. Why, it's chilly out there, but who cares? We have things to talk about. And those things that I wanted to talk about actually start with what I think a lot of folks probably come on to watch when they come to see my show, and that is comedy. Now, Wyatt, you are the son of a stand-up comic, so you never remember not having a father who was a stand-up comic. Yeah. When was the first time you realized your dad was a stand-up comic?
Well, let's see. Well, to answer that question, I think a better way to rephrase that is, when's the last time you gave me a funny joke that I could remember for years to come?
No, I'm not talking.
Unfortunately for you, we may need to wait till the next album release.
Okay, listen. Next album. Wyatt, do you remember or recall the first time you realized, I guess my dad's a comic? That's, I guess, not what everybody's dad does.
I would say probably middle school.
Okay, and then how did you figure it out?
I always knew, but that was just the point in my life where I could put the pieces together and sort of go, oh, that's what that means.
So did your friends mention anything, or
No.
was it just you just realized it?
I personally realized it.
Okay, and just realized that wasn't maybe typical.
Yeah.
Now, we're in Nashville. You had a friend whose dad was a music producer. You had friends whose fathers were CEOs of big companies. So, you know, it's not like these guys were not doing something interesting, significant in their lives, but you've been around people who are in the entertainment business, and suddenly you realize it was coming. And was it interesting to you? Was it kind of, did you think it was cool, or you thought like, well, it's just, that's what it is. My dad's a comic.
It's kind of both, because I am at this point kind of used to you just being the funny man. But at the same time, there aren't that many the funny man around right now. So.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. There are even less and less. And, of course, because my particular funny man came out years ago and said, I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a patriot, and I'm just going to say what I am, and I'll take what comes my way. And what came my way when I came out as my particular perspective in comedy was I knew at that time that I had probably destroyed any shot I had at being on The Tonight Show. I had destroyed any shot I had at being on any late night show. Now, I had been on a lot of the comedy shows, Showtime Comedy Club Network, Evening at the Improv, Comedy on the Road. What were some of the other ones? MTV Half Hour Comedy Hour. I was on a lot of the sort of off-brand comedy shows, but the big ones, the network ones, you know, I knew that was going to be a problem because of what I stood for. But, you know, that was at that time that I just realized there were too many people in America, especially in the entertainment business, that simply seemed to try to make money putting down America. And I just didn't like it. I believed it. This nation was great. I believed what it stood for mattered. And I was going to incorporate that into my comedy as a conservative and just see if there was anybody out there that was interested. Turns out it was half the nation. So, still not on those TV shows, but nevertheless, here I am. But, you know, one of the things that I think I really found fascinating was how much you can learn from your peers in the entertainment business. You know, it's an interesting thing, Wyatt, and I don't know if you have this issue. I know that people, my son works at Lowe's, so I don't know if you have the same problem. People come up to you and say, hey, you work at Lowe's, what are you trying to do? Impersonate like a Home Depot employee? In other words, they're thinking you're being a derivative, because that's one of the things that I hear, is that people say, oh, you're trying to do George Carlin's act. Or they'll say you stole George Carlin's act. I said, no, I've never taken any material from George Carlin or anybody else. I've written 6 albums all by myself. But if you are a performance artist, you will be influenced, you will be inspired, you will find things about people in your genre that you like and that you feel are powerful means of communication. And you can't help but have elements of that seep in. And for sure, there are elements of George Carlin stylistically in me, in that I always wanted to be a smart comic, if I could be. I wanted to try to think if I could make things kind of, I don't know, stand for some idea that was more interesting and deeper than just a laugh. I loved his use of words and trying to see if we could sort of use your words to define and create concepts that were humorous but yet had some creativity to them. It wasn't something everybody could do. So in that regard, but I got to tell you that I, like all artists, have had certain amounts of inspiration from lots of people. And let me tell you one of those pieces of information, because it's going to apply to the podcast here tonight. And here's what it was. So years ago, I was performing in Seattle, Washington. That's before Seattle became a cesspool. But I loved going there. It was a beautiful part of the country. But now it's not! And I found it to be a place where there were really interesting comics and creative folks and so forth. And you could go down to all the different areas downtown, and it was just a very cool place to be. And I was staying with an agent who booked that area. I was at her house for dinner or something, and I noticed on her shelf was a book called Sign Language, and it was a book that Jerry Seinfeld had written that was dealing with his comedy. Well, I had never really done a lot of paying attention to Jerry Seinfeld. Now, this is prior, I think, to Seinfeld, the show. I think it was just prior to that. But I had performed in New York City and performed on Catch a Rising Star when and I told you the story when Jerry Seinfeld came in and worked out a set and bombed because he was working out new material. He was there with Mario Joyner, which was a good friend of his, and a guy I knew from MTV Half Hour Comedy Hour and at the Just for Laughs Festival in Montreal. So I was reading his material that was written out, and it's one thing about comedy is that if you do it, and all stand-up comedy is done on the fly, on the stage as you begin to work out the beats and the measures and try to see where the funny is, and your audience lets you know if it's funny. They're the ones that let you know. It's the only performance art I know of where you have to rehearse in front of your audience, but that's what I did. And I found myself reading his material, and it was fascinating to me, and I'll tell you why. Because as I read what he was talking about, and one specific thing I remember was he was doing a joke about ventriloquist dummies, and he mentioned how the dummy always had that sort of those pants that were excuse me, hiked up a little too much, and there was little white socks that he would wear, and it was just these little details. But it was very funny. And I remember thinking to myself, this guy really milks every stinking drop of funny out of every premise he comes up with. And it really made me understand how much I had what I like to call quit too soon. See, the hardest thing about comedy is being funny in front of strangers, and then finding a premise that they're going to take a ride with you on. So one of the things that I tell people and teach people that are trying to learn about comedy is it's always easier to add to a premise that is working than to come up with a brand new premise. If you're talking about ventriloquist dummies and people are laughing, they've already agreed, this is funny, we're joining you, keep us intrigued. So anything that you can find that you can add to that is simply going to make it a deeper, longer, more robust routine and be funnier because they're already laughing. You've gotten the roller coaster to the top of the hill. It's already going down. It's just working on momentum now. And one thing that I discovered too is that sometimes there's jokes out there that or lines that you had that never really quite worked. They just weren't strong enough on their own, but they had a similar tone and a topic concept that I could find a way to infiltrate them into another joke I was doing and attach them, and suddenly I invigorated it with strength because it was attached to a joke that was already working, just like I said. And that's what I learned from Seinfeld, was that he taught not to give up too soon. Keep mining that material for more gold. And it was something I learned from him and tried to say, is there more here? Don't quit too soon. And the reason that I bring that up is because, as I said, some people might watch because they're interested in me as a comedian, and so perhaps they assumed I would be doing some funny stuff. And I try to, but I also, as those of you who watch regularly know, I'm really more interested in more serious topics and things that are more life changing. And those are the things that I try to talk about and have my guests talk about. So I wanted to sort of take this topic into where I wanted to take tonight's podcast episode. And it's kind of off of the idea, don't quit too soon. In other words, there's more to think about here. There's more to think about. And that's really kind of the title of tonight's podcast. And that is, don't stop thinking too soon. See, I believe that America is being destroyed because the institutions that used to educate our children have been destroyed. They're obviously infiltrated with Marxism, and we now have the Marxism that's taken on the brand of critical race theory, which is theory designed to tell people that you are in groups and that one race is superior to the other one and one needs to apologize for their color. It's a racist, absurd idea, but it's now part of the curriculum in some schools in the United States. It will be our undoing if we don't put a stop like some parents have tried to do. I promise you, America won't exist. We'll simply be destroyed because we will no longer be cohesive. We won't be able to maintain this eclectic America, which is the most unique and diverse group of humans in human history, in creating a model that stated you're an American if you join us, no matter where you come from. And that model's never been done anywhere else ever, and never duplicated to the degree we did here. And it's going to become unwoven and die if we don't fix what's happening. But I believe it's happening because people stop thinking too soon. And what I mean by that is, there's so much that is utilized with just sort of bullet points and bumper sticker psychology, memes, and just quick nonsense nomenclature that people think is some deep philosophical construct that they have to sort of bow their knee to. And it's stupid, it's insipid, it's shallow, it's ridiculous. But because people are afraid to think deeply, and because we have a generation that's been taught if you don't like what you hear, you're allowed to destroy it, and they'll call you a fascist while they're being a fascist, that we are basically creating children. We are creating a generation, for the first time in our history, of taking 18, 19, 20-year-olds going into college and reversing their mental and emotional state to that of a 6-year-old. This isn't a flippant insult at the foolishness and the absurdity of the younger generation. It's simply telling them what's happening. And if they were watching, if that age group was watching me out, they wouldn't even understand what I'm saying. They wouldn't. They actually believe they're smarter than everybody else that's ever gone before them in the last 5, 6, 7,000 years in human history. That's where we're at. So don't stop thinking too soon. What do I mean by that? Always understand that you have a presuppositional worldview. Everybody does. You have a way of seeing the world that you believe is true. Now, that's great. Everybody does. I have one. I'm a Christian. I believe Jesus was actually on earth. We have proof of that. He actually died and rose again. We have proof of that. I mean, we have people that saw this incredible once-in-a-lifetime, one-time in history thing to show that God actually was here and left information as to how to navigate the world. And what's fascinating to me is that even guys like Jordan Peterson, who's become such a worldwide iconic guy, who's not even a Christian, revels in the Bible and has done entire lectures on the power of the greatest book in human history, the Bible. The greatest book, the most amazing, the most influential, the most miraculous, the most inspirational, the most one-of-a-kind book in human history, the Bible. If for no other reason than just how it's changed the world and created the West, you should read it just to see what it's done, because there's nothing like it in history. But I want you guys to understand that I, as a conservative and a Christian, have a bias. I believe it's true. I believe conservatism is the way by which we conserve the wisdom of the ages, and by continuing in that reign, because we can look at the history and see what worked and what didn't, we're just wise in trying to maintain that which is best for all people. Doesn't mean you don't adjust, doesn't mean you don't adapt, doesn't mean you don't tweak things that are off, but you don't wholesale destroy the foundations of everything that worked to create something from scratch that has proven to fail. And anything that has Marxism attached to it is cancer, period. I've said this a million times. So I am sitting here telling you and looking you in the face and saying I'm a Christian, I'm a conservative, and I have a bias in that regard. If you are a leftist that happens to be watching, and if you are, God bless you. If you're an atheist that happens to be watching, God bless you. I'm glad, because it means you actually want to hear different information and think about it and weigh it next to what you think is true about the world. And that's how we grow as humans. So it's a beautiful way to navigate the world by actually wanting a robust conversation. But because I'm a conservative and beholden to the truth, so I admit and agree that I have a bias, a confirmation bias. I see the world through the lens of my faith and the philosophical idea of conservatism, and believing in the cohesiveness and the absolute crucial importance of e pluribus unum. Out of many cultures, one culture, American culture, is the only way we'll survive. So I'm admitting that. Left will not admit they're biased. They will simply say they're right. They cannot see any other way to see the world. They cannot weigh the idea because they've been taught you don't have to. You're already right. Anybody that disagrees with you is not wrong. They're evil, and they must be destroyed. And the truth is, because tech, which disseminates information, are also leftists, that's exactly what's happening. They have become literally the most totalitarian fascist, well, in American history that we can see. And something's going to give eventually. Now, it will either be the worst case scenario, civil war, bloody civil war. We've done one before. It could happen again. Or maybe the opposite will happen. Maybe we will actually get so tired of the childishness and the immaturity that's ruling this nation that we'll go back to freedom and actual liberal abilities to see things clearly and objectively and try to actually convince another person of your point of view in a way that makes sense and they can actually embrace it. So I'm going to show you a clip of me doing a Brad Stine Has Issues, the original version, talking about cognitive bias, and allow you to get a quick confirmation bias, and allow you to get a quick nutshell as to what it is and how it can be destructive or perfect in helping you grow as a human and be more able to discern what is true and what is false and able to apply it to your life. So sit back and watch my rant of confirmation bias. This is Brad Stine Has Issues. Hit it wide. It's me, God's comic, Brad Stine. Brad Stine Has Issues. Today, we're going to talk about confirmation bias. I know. It's not a real sexy subject. That's why I've decided I'm going to do the entire monologue wearing this leopard print Speedo.
I
And if
think
you
it has.
subscribe-
It's still sort of cutting up and down on the levels.
Confirmation bias. What does it mean? Who suffers from it? And is there a vaccine we can give to those caught in its clutches?
Not without difficulty, so I'm
Just
assuming.
let me remind you of this. I'm a conservative. I admit it. And that means I'm willing to admit I'm not perfect. Always right, but not always perfect. But confirmation bias is a real psychological concept. And the truth is, it's almost impossible for everyone, conservative and progressive, not to be infected by it, because one of the symptoms is that people who have it always think it's everybody else's flaw. For the definition of confirmation bias, for those of you who don't read, we go to Merriam-Webster, and let's face it, Merriam, that old bag, always thinks her take on definitions is the right one. Anyways, confirmation bias, the tendency to seek out and interpret information in a way that confirms one's own beliefs or preconceptions. It's kind of a pseudo-scientific version of the half-full glass. Pessimists say, who drank half my water?
I just don't want to take it.
Optimists say, who filled my cup up halfway? Thanks. And socialists say, I'm still on formula. And I want the optimist to pay for it, while the pessimist changes my pull-up.
It's supposed to be like that.
But no matter how they respond, it comes from the character or lack thereof of the individual. You see, everyone has a worldview. Now, a worldview simply means how do you interpret the world and what goes on in it. So if you believe the world is unfair to certain people, then everything you see, every news story, every action, every sentence uttered by others is going to be interpreted through the filter of how you already see things. See, one thing all Americans realize is how polarized we become. Well, confirmation bias is part of the reason, because it makes it impossible to reason with each other. Let's take an example from President Trump. He started calling CNN
I don't think we
fake
caught
news.
this earlier
Now,
today because
if you aren't a fan of CNN, then you're easily able to.
Well, yeah, but when I was doing the
interpret its
headphones, it wasn't doing
left-leaning
that during
bias
the testing.
as,
It's only done it now.
Left-leaning
during the
bias.
show. And I think it's just because you're a
aren't
lot more
listening to
animated
actual
doing the thing, so
objective
you're
reporting.
constantly
You're-
moving in and out of a drain.
Instead, you're hearing a glorified
man.
op-ed based on how these at one-time journalists and anchors see the world. But if you
I know,
are progressive,
and it's gonna
then
happen,
you
man.
interpret the left-leaning bias
No.
as
No,
just
I don't
reporting
accept that.
facts.
Yeah, you might have a little.
See,
tweak
you
here,
already
tweak
see
there,
the world
but
through
not
leftist
this
ideology, so
everyday
you literally are
10 hours.
unable to see the
Every-
flaws in the reporting.
Every day.
if they
and act
exist,
like, yeah, that's how it
simply
goes.
because
Yeah, that's how professionals
you want it
work.
to be
That's how
true.
you go looking anywhere
Now,
in the world.
I know
on
what you're
podcasts,
thinking,
they're
especially
every day,
if you're
their thing is
progressive,
working, the
because,
guy's going,
well,
yeah,
you
it
don't
just
think
doesn't
that much,
work.
so it's easy to
that's-
follow.
That's how
But
everybody else is.
you might say that conservatives
I'm not
do
the
the
only
same
guy
thing with
that's in
Fox.
here with this screw up.
You'd be right. by the way.
Every single
When the
podcast.
conservative hears a host on Fox that isn't
and it's
towing
upside
the
down,
conservative
but
line,
nobody saw it. And I
they
had
see
to
him
see
or
it.
her as a traitor. How do they sneak this guy in there and tell us things we don't want to hear? Wait,
Today, man.
are you stunned by what you just heard? A conservative admitting he might have a bias? Yeah. Here's where it gets challenging, folks.
I don't know why that would.
Just because you're biased doesn't
Again, it is a
necessarily
targeted.
mean
It's not picking up sound from every direction, you know. It's
man
only
bias,
from one specific
man's
direction it's picking up
conviction.
sound.
Maybe it just.
See, that's the difference between the conservative philosophy and a leftist or progressive philosophy. You see, conservatism is beholden to truth. We actually believe that truth exists. Immutable truth, not my truth, or a truth, actual truth that exists, irrespective of my beliefs. What? I see heads exploding in dorm rooms throughout the country. You mean relativism isn't absolutely true? No, you dork. Think about it. If an ideology says it's absolutely true that there is no absolute truth, then it's its own throat. Oh,
Got about 6.
that might be too graphic. Okay, for the snowflakes, it defends itself. Look, to a conservative, when what I believe conflicts with what is true, I change my beliefs. To the progressive, they're taught, when what they believe conflicts with the truth, they change the truth. Listen, I get it. I'm conservative, so I have to train myself to try and discern fact from feelings. The good news is conservatism is true, so it makes my self-editing a lot easier. All right, seriously. How do you differentiate between beliefs and objective truth? Well, you're at the right show. You have to apply an age-old formula that takes years of discipline and self-denial to implement. It's called education. I'm not talking about what has become the university fall education that teaches kids what the tenured professors want to create out of the vulnerable minds of 18-year-olds. I'm talking about what universities used to specialize in, critical thinking. If you want to determine what is true as opposed to your opinion, there are a couple ways to go about it. One, always listen to and acquire views that oppose yours so you can compare them. Look around at universities. See what ideas are they allowing in and what are they forbidding. Who's being disinvited from universities, progressives or conservatives? If you don't know, I'll do your homework for you. Conservatives are being disinvited. Which ideas are causing some students to protest violently by shouting down other ideas and slandering them with insults? Are they progressive ideas or conservative? Only conservative ideas. What is 90% of professors' ideology in most universities, conservative or progressive? Are you catching on yet? Progressive ideas dominate academia. So if you're smart, or you want to be, and especially if you lean left, you need to ask, what are progressives so afraid of that they not only won't debate conservative ideas, but also believe they have the right to censor them? How bad is your ideas that they can't withstand scrutiny? The moment someone says you can't disagree with me, you need to be suspicious of them. If you aren't, then you're comfortably locked into confirmation bias, and you've become a slave to others thinking for you. You can't know if something is true, by the way, unless you have all the info from both sides. If you get all your info from the left, you literally will never be able to think critically because you were never taught to defend your position. You've been taught instead that all you need to do is shout loudly, cry occasionally, and call your opponents names. If you feel good about that, then you must be right. By the way, that's how children argue. They yell and scream and demand their way. Think about that. If you're an institution of higher learning, you're literally spending thousands of dollars on a college education that's teaching you to behave the way you did in kindergarten. Doesn't that insult you? Dang, you could have saved a lot of dough if you decided to stop learning at 6. Secondly, you have to train yourself to tell the difference between fact and opinion. Look at ideas historically and see if they were tried, and if so, were they effective? In other words, forget what you want to be true. Look around and have the courage to be able to walk away from some concept you think is good, like socialism, for example, and realize it meant well, but it never worked. How do you do that? Is to first do some introspection. Be honest with yourself in regards to your social belief system. Are you a progressive or a conservative? You need to know. Be honest with yourself. Then, when you observe the facts about an idea, does the conclusions make you not want to agree with them, even if there are facts and statistics to back the claim? You see, America? Progressives and conservatives want the same thing. This is something progressives never say about my people, but I'm saying it about you. You want life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But we do disagree on the best way to implement those ideas. That will be the eternal challenge. To agree, disagree, agreeably. It's not easy. Nothing good is. But that's why you watch my show. So I can do all the thinking for you. So you can be autonomous. This is God's comic, Brad Stine. And remember, being PC-free is finally liberty. Join the movement. And if not, put a helmet on. Hey guys, I hope you like my brand new show on my brand new channel. Brad Stine Has Issues. And I needed to fix those issues, and I was willing to do it. I'd do whatever they needed me to do. I did a lobotomy, I did another one, and then another one. Why? They didn't take. Then I did electroshock therapy, and I even added, it's a pill that goes up the nether regions. But I didn't care. It's for you. It's not for me. I already know who I am. I already know all the answers, and I already know I have issues. But I had to be out there to help you. Kind of a martyr. So, like and subscribe to my channel, and your issues will be cleared up too. Hit the notification bell to get all the updates, and you also will be cured of any issues you might have. And even watch some of these videos so you can laugh when you never laughed before. That's why I'm here, folks. I got my issues corrected. Now my job, correct yours. And they are numerous. As you can see, there is a way to observe the difference between what you believe, which is fine. I mean, we all are biased. You know, I did a whole routine on that once called We're All Bigots, because bigoted means an intolerance, an absolute refusal to allow or accept or dignify a different point of view. That's bigotry. Well, I'm bigoted towards Nazis. I'm bigoted towards racist. I'm bigoted towards those people, and it's a good thing. Words are important, especially the words that are spoken of during the clips that you aren't supposed to hear. But again, remember, when you bring your son on who doesn't understand how to turn off mics, that's what you get. It's chaos, it's absurdity, it's foolishness, it's embarrassment. But the good news is, yes, I'm the face that people look at and see it. But at least I can always take my mic, which is my bread and butter, and let you know that it was, once again, my son's fault as we were trying to figure out how to run all this crazy apparatus
that you guys have helped us acquire. Why?
Mike was working fine a few hours ago.
Yeah.
They all heard it.
They all heard it. And then they heard us
Once
talking,
again,
trying to figure out how to fix our mics.
Yeah.
So anyways,
Yeah,
sorry about that glitch.
I gotta apologize. I accidentally muted the wrong thing because all the buttons on the app, they look the exact same.
Yeah.
So I
Some
just
people
misclicked the wrong
actually
one.
put little pieces of tape with each signature on it, so you know what's
well,
what.
the thing is that doesn't really work with this because it's constantly shifting where it is.
Okay. Well, anyways.
Yes,
but
but-
I hope you guys understood what the concept was of confirmation bias. What were we discussing? What was I trying to say? Now, the reason this is important to me is not just because it's the way you're going to have to be aware of going forward to fight for freedom and truth and religious liberty in America. You can't do that if you don't know what you're fighting for, if you don't know what you believe, if you aren't saying what matters to you and you're standing for it. But you also have to have the courage and the ability to look at your own stuff and say, could it be altered? Could it be fixed? Am I missing anything? Do you have the ability to objectively look at your point of view and see if there's flaws? Because that's the whole point of making your point of view have value. Can the antithesis defeat it? If it can't, you're on to something. If it can, or it needs to be adjusted, then that's good. You're becoming a more well-rounded actual deliverer of truth. Now, I'm going to show you a clip from Bill Maher. The reason I want to do that is because lately a lot of people have been discussing that Bill Maher seems to be attacking the left, which he had never done before. And that's true. He never has. Now, he would not claim to be a leftist. He believes he's a liberal, which means, he believes in actual free speech and giving everybody a chance to have a point of view, and then you just sort of assess what you believe and try to convince others to disagree or agree with you. So he's been talking about Corona and lately, and about the way that the world is happening and dealing with it as we speak. For example, did you know that right now there are countries in the world who have given up on vaccine mandates and mask mandates and opened wide open? You know who that is? The United Kingdom, wide open. No more passports, no more mandates at all. Ireland of all places, Denmark, Sweden, wide open. I think there's more than that. And some that are almost wide open, have a couple little tweaks left, but almost wide open. Mexico, El Salvador, South Africa, Norway. So everybody else in the world is finally deciding to do what we should have done from day one, and we didn't. But what's fascinating to me, and I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is what I observed in this Bill Maher clip that I found even more interesting. I'm guessing many of you won't actually pick up on what it is I'm about to say about it, but it's important because it deals with confirmation bias. And more importantly, confirmation bias has a more detrimental idea in that it doesn't allow you to see yourself objectively and observe your own flaws. So that being said, I want to show you what's happening, that Bill Maher is finally saying things, and even the CDC and CNN, believe it or not, are saying things that those of us who are fans of what I talk about and who I am have been saying over a year. But there's something about it and about what his audience is doing that I want to see if you pick up on. So Wyatt, if you could, show the clip of what Bill Maher is talking about, what is happening in the world and in America in regards to this pandemic that has been such an absolute disaster on every level except the one level that they were trying to most protect, and that is that this was a deadly disease that was going to destroy most of the human beings. That one thing that caused them to make the decisions they made was so wrong that the destruction on the other side of that has become far worse, and there's no going back for some of what kids have suffered. But Wyatt, if you would, show the clip of Bill Maher. There's actually two clips, so we might do them back to back. But I want you to watch, listen to the audience, and see if they're acting in a way that gives you pause. Go ahead and hit it, Wyatt.
Time to do what a growing list of countries have done and announce we're going back to something more like normal, beginning with recognizing that what we're doing to kids is unnecessary and horrible, and I don't even like kids. But making kids who have a COVID survivability rate of 99.98% mask up like bandits, unfortunately, the thing that's getting stolen is their education, their sanity, and their social skills. A study this week from a professor at Johns Hopkins concluded that the lockdowns we all suffered through had little impact in reducing COVID deaths. Okay, that's kind of a big one to get wrong. Last July, President Biden said, "You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations." Well, I already knew that was wrong then, and now we all do. The former director of the CDC, Robert Redfield, believes COVID originated in a lab, and now our intelligence agencies agree it might have. But for months on social media, it was banned to even discuss it. Look, I'm not saying the medical establishment isn't trying to figure shit out or that they're corrupt, although there is some of that. But how about just wrong? Wrong a lot. Wrong about HIV, wrong about lockdowns, wrong about kids, wrong about how you couldn't get it if you were vaccinated. Remember washing our packages? And there's never been any research showing that outdoor transmission is likely or common, yet LA County says we're still supposed to mask up for big outdoor events, like we'll be at the Super Bowl. Well, supposed to. It's all theater, watching athletes mix it up on the court and then mask on the sideline, not being able to touch a menu, but watching them touch my food. Maskless at dinner while sitting but not standing. And by the way, if Applebee's really cared about our health, they would make us cover our mouths after the food arrived. I'm just asking, how much wrong do you get to be while still holding the default setting for people who represent the science? Time to do what a
So here's what I want you to think about. So we just watched Bill Maher talk about how wrong the COVID mandates were. He is saying it, right? CDC said, as you heard him say, that I think they said 0.2% of people, 0.2% of people were saved by the lockdowns. 0.2%. Virtually nobody. In other words, the lockdowns, the greatest destruction that happened worldwide. It lost people's businesses. It lost their dignity. It lost their way to make money. It lost their ability to be free. It lost their ability for them to go to hold their government accountable. The one thing that they did to teach us that they controlled us was an absolute mistake and did nothing to keep people alive. And he's finally admitting it. Now, those of us who saw this from the get-go said, this ain't working. We have never in history locked down the well for the sake of the sick. The sick were the quarantined. They were sent somewhere else so we could protect them. No, this ain't about not protecting people. But what did the people say? If you don't wear a mask, you're not protecting the sick. That's a lie that they have instigated so they could feel better about themselves because they were afraid because they maybe weren't healthy. And they were afraid and need the government to protect them because they're children. I'm telling you, when I tell you that this nation is teaching people to think like children, I'm not kidding. To think like cowards, I'm not kidding. And every time he brought up the CDC, they applauded. And every time he brought up that they were wrong, and maybe we need to be aware of who actually got sick and who actually was at stake so they could be protected. Suddenly, his audience, who is the sheep of any show I've ever seen, applaud like he's given them a messianic insight. Wyatt, there's another clip of him. It's a shorter one. It's only a minute. But it goes even more in detail in some of the things that now Bill Maher, of all people, is telling us needs to be remembered and readjusted about COVID and Corona and our response. Go ahead and hit that one. I want you guys to see this. Listen to the audience, because I'm going to talk about them in a second. Go ahead.
New York in 2020 learned the hard way how much better precision would have been in prioritizing protecting the nursing homes. Contrary to popular lore, COVID is not Russian roulette. Of course, any virus, anything, can kill anyone at any time. But we know who COVID kills. 75% of COVID deaths are people 65 and older. 98 to 99% are unvaccinated. 78% who've died or been hospitalized were overweight. If you're obese and unvaccinated, or 85 and still crowd surfing at music festivals, yes, this will likely go badly for you. But at some point, that has to stop being my responsibility. Doesn't it make more sense to focus on helping the vulnerable stay safe and let the rest of us go back to living normal lives?
So, everything that you just heard Bill Maher on his HBO subsidized television show is stuff that guys like you who have watched my show, you're conservatives, you're probably Christians, you're definitely patriots. We've been saying this for a year and a half. So nothing that he said shocks us. We might be shocked that he's actually admitting the truth and spilling it out there, but here's what I want you to do, what I wanted to talk to you about. Because remember, we started this clip with me talking about confirmation bias. The audience applauded every time he exposed the inanity of how we handled this virus and how things need to go back to normal and how the sick need to be protected and how those who were put into nursing homes killed these people. Nothing happened to these guys. What was it that I wanted you to notice if you didn't about the audience? They applauded. They thought it was exciting that he revealed. They agreed with him. But a year ago, he didn't say any of those things. He said the opposite. He said, you got to keep your mask on. He said, what's wrong with you people? Get vaccinated. Do you want to kill everybody? The guy said the exact opposite stuff. And they all applauded because they can't think for themselves. America is being destroyed by children teaching children to act childish. When I was young, I did childish things, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. It's in Corinthians. You're supposed to act like a man and a woman, a mature adult. You're supposed to look at, assess the risk, and make the right decision as to what is best for the people that you are supposed to be protecting as a governor, as a president. You're supposed to try to make the best decisions. And when a year ago Florida opened wide open and they tried to destroy him, they proved that they had less infections in New York, which did the opposite, the most brutal, totalitarian mandates as possible, and they got more people killed. The proof was in the pudding. They still didn't do anything. It's a crime against humanity. Crime against humanity. But the idea of hearing these smug audience members clapping like suddenly they got some insight. Where were you a year ago when we could have stopped this? When you could have mobilized? When you could have been an American? When you could have been joined us and we could have been like Canadian truckers saying, enough. We're going down. We're opening it up. We're pulling our horns and we're not leaving because we rule, you don't. Where is the courageous ones? Where are the warriors? Where are the awakened warriors? I watch pastors cower and shut down their churches. Coward, you don't deserve a church. And that's why so many churches were lost. And the people left there, found the open church and stayed there. And the other church stayed under. What did I do, Lord? You were a coward. You didn't hear me. You had to be removed. You were doing a disservice to your people who needed to know that you would be there if they needed you in the worst of times. We don't need children calling themselves pastors and trying to lead a flock. We need courageous men who hear God and say, this time is more important for people to know I'm here and we will talk about God and we'll get together. If you choose, you'll have to come. And if you want to even wear a mask, we'll let you. We are not going to keep you from doing anything that gives you the comfort. But we're going to be here together. If that's not a basic Christian tenet, why are you a pastor? They are controlling everything that gave us freedom. Joe Rogan came out with another apology. I couldn't be more devastated by this guy. He was a comic. We should be the bravest of us all. We're the ones that speak the things that nobody else speaks. He had this great podcast, still does, where he just talks long-term with people. And he, not an expert in everything, but it's an interesting conversation. He lets people talk. He doesn't have to agree with them. He even tries to challenge them. Or maybe he does agree with them, and they throw him a curveball he wasn't expecting. But that's an interesting conversation because it's an actual conversation dealing with information that needs to be heard. You don't have to agree with it. You can even double-check it. You can fact-check it if you can, if that's even available anymore, without that espionage being controlled by propagandists. Leftists always control the narrative, always control the words. Because that's how people can be fooled, because people don't want to go beyond the words and seek the truth. And those of us who are saying, please help us, join us, fight with us, we're going to be sucked down into the pit with you because you are such cowards. I want to do nothing to help these people. I want them and their families wiped out because I'm a human being and that's how I feel. By the time you figure out what should have been happening, it's too late. And I say, good, be wiped out. Weed you out so the rest of us who are courageous can fight. But you know what? Jesus would say, love on them, care for them, protect them. They knew not what they did. I have to be that. That's why Christianity is true. It makes a human go against his human nature and do something more beautiful, more empathetic. That's the one thing you never, ever, ever get in woke culture. There is no empathy. There is no forgiveness. There is no defense of the fact that 20 years ago you're not who you are today. What bothered me was Joe comes on. And somebody compiled, it was a leftist organization, compiled a bunch of him using N-word throughout it. And he said, I'm so sorry, it makes me look stupid. But it was out of context. I did an entire routine telling you that one of the biggest problems with the church and with Christians, and with anybody, but I'm talking to my people, is they learn to judge content instead of context. What did he mean when he was saying that? Why did he bring it up? And then Joe comes on and he says, you know what? I'm going to do better. I'm going to bring on people that have other points of view. I'm going to do better. That's the terms given to him by the communist regime that says you need to be rethought, retaught. You need to do some sessions, struggle sessions. And here's the words to do. We're going to belittle you. We're going to steal your dignity. We're going to make you things about doing better and how you're going to squirm at the fact that how dare me have an idea that was different than the left. Fight these people! Never apologize if you did nothing wrong. Never! Well, I was offended by something he said 20 years ago. Suck it up! I'm offended by your smugness right now. I'm offended by your cowardice, your spinelessness. Who made you the controller of my life, child? He talks about white people don't have access to this word. We're never allowed to use the word. Really? That's racist. Show me any scenario where I can say, because my skin is a lighter color, I reserve certain words for me. If you're Chinese, you don't get my word. Black, no my word. Mexican, no, white word. That's ridiculous. Talk about losing continuity of humans coming together, sharing, and becoming one. It's going backwards, man. You're sticking racism into the middle of it, thinking you're virtuous, thinking you're superior to the rest of us by controlling and enslaving those who suddenly you want to control. And that's the key. They talk about equity. Everything's fair. You don't want fairness. You want to take over so you can rule. So you can rule. You're a liar. You're a hypocrite. Billions of dollars were raised by Black Lives Matters who said they were Marxist trained. They bought 6 homes. It was a scam. Folks, You're going to have to find your version of a Canadian truck rally. You're going to have to find your version. You're going to have to find your version of parents at a school board meeting saying, you will not teach my kids this stuff. We control our children and the education system, not you. How dare you. Folks, there isn't time for anything less than pure, unabashed warriorship in standing for that which is right and virtuous and strong and real and good. You know, I told you earlier that I came out on stage, you know, conservative Christian patriot. And I told you I knew at that time I would never ever see the light of day of Tonight Show or any of the television network shows. I knew I didn't have it. I knew I had killed myself at that point. From that, didn't care because I loved my nation more. I loved my God more. I loved my faith more. I loved my values more. Didn't need their nonsense to dignify me or to tell me who I was. Didn't need it. The most powerful podcast in the world, Joe Rogan, and he's succumbing to these people. I'll never be on Joe Rogan. Why would he put me on? I'm nobody. And I'm a conservative. I'm a Christian. We'd have things to talk about because we're both comics. We both care about free speech. And he begins to buckle $100 million. Did you know that, I think it was, I forgot, another platform said, come over here, we'll give you $100 million. He doesn't have to go anywhere. He didn't have to apologize because he didn't do anything wrong. Folks, if you apologize and you did nothing wrong, you're the problem. You're destroying America. You're destroying freedom. If you say somebody is a gender they're not, you're killing us. You're speaking lies. You're destroying truth. You! Yeah, it's individuals saying no. Jordan Peterson got world famous because he stood up to a law from Canada, not because he wouldn't use pronouns that others asked him to. He said he'd do that if that made the guy feel good. What he wasn't going to be is be told by the government, you have to speak like this. That I'm not doing. Made him world famous. The new counterculture, the new courageous one are the conservatives, are the Christians, are those who actually stand for virtue and morality, who don't have sex before marriage, who stay married no matter how difficult it gets, who abhor divorce, who don't kill their babies. That's the new counterculture. This is a book I wrote a long time ago. It used to be called Life in Middle America, Rants from a Red State Comedian. They reissued it in paperback, How to Think Right. It's got some funny stuff, but it has some right-leaning ideas. I'm going to auction this off. Anybody wants this, start with $20, and I will sign it to you. Whoever gives me the most donation, I will send this as a gift to you for 20 or more. We're trying to raise the ability to continue to grow this podcast, to continue to bring guests on. Because I continue to have glitches in my podcast, I'm not bringing guests on yet. Because I don't want to bring somebody on and have things not be able to work properly. I'm not going to bring somebody on and not know if their mic's going to work. I'm not going to bring somebody on and not know if we can see their lights. I'm not going to bring somebody on and find out that we can't even mute our mics. This is the way it is going to be. I'm not going to do this until it can be done at a quality it deserves, and God deserves, because he gave me this. So anyways, we're going to continue to work on this together as a family. I'm with my son, and I'm so grateful for the work he's doing to try to help me in this thing, and he's trying to learn as he goes, just like I am. My son-in-law is actually going to come in and help with some of the photography, and maybe I'm going to start doing some sketches and some clips, and he's going to do some editing. So again, I'm just going to grow this because I believe that things need to be said that I'm supposed to say, and I'm going to keep doing it as long as it bears fruit. I've told you that before. I've been around a long time. I told you guys who come on my podcast, this is the one time I'm getting the most vulnerable, the most real is on this show. when you see me in a comedy club, you're going to see me doing comedy. You see me in a church, you're going to be seeing me do comedy that way, or talking, or teaching. You're going to see that guy. But here's the place where I talk to you like it's just you and me. Whoever's out there, who's ever the Karen Boyd and Clovis Jones and Dane Bretfold, we're going to, I'm talking to you guys one-on-one, and we're going to. We're going to see what might transpire and what things could be accomplished and what maybe mobilizations we can get. I've got a big tour coming up in Texas in April with Rick Green on the Constitution and comedy. We've got a lot of things coming that I want to continue to fight for the religious liberties and freedoms in this country. But folks, I'm just a regular guy. I'm just an American like you, trying to do whatever little thing I can do to see if I can make a change, and I'm trying. Okay, but I also told you guys that I started out as a professional magician. I showed you my thumb. I actually literally had two magnets smashed together and rip a big hunk out of my thumb. Because I had magnets as a magician. I was just buying these magnets to see if I could use them for some magic sleight of hand trick or something. Never did, but I destroyed my finger. Anyways, but for those of you who didn't know what I did and what I was when I first started, in 1992, I took a trip across the continent into the United Kingdom, into England. And on Channel 4 was a very well-known host named Jules Holland. Jules had a show on called, what was it? I think it was called Viva Cafe or Viva Cabaret. I forgot which one. It's been 92, been a while. But it was on Channel 4, which was where the channel they'd always have their most unique programming. It's where Monty Python was. And so I went there and I performed on this man's show. And it was 1992, so I'd only been doing comedy 4 years. I wasn't really ready. I was still trying to figure myself out. And at that time, I was still incorporating my sleight of hand, my magic, into my comedy with a whole new style. I was always looking for a new way to look. I was looking for what to wear, how to wear my hair, what to do with my face, what to do with my sideburns. I was 4 years into trying to be a stand-up comic and figuring that out. So that's what you're about to see right now. I told you we're going to end with something fun. This is a clip of me in London, England, on a television show, just the last part of the show, the grand finale, but using some of my sideshow things that I had learned as a magician that I had used in my comedy back in those days when I was performing on television, doing my comedy magic show, so to speak. So, just for the fun of it, you want to see what I looked like 92 when I was a young buck with a whole different head of hair? This is Brad Stine with Jules Holland, Viva Cabaret. And you are going to see a whole nother side of me. Why I hit it.
Oh, by the way, before I do this, I just got comments saying that the microphone issue fixed itself.
Oh.
Further questioning what on earth happened with it, but
Yeah.
here's the video right now.
All right.
Party time! Oh, look at him, wake up! Oh, he wasn't funny till the Meccan ran himself through. Brad, what? Don't swallow the steel rod. Too late, front row people. Hope I don't throw up. I thought he's gonna do it. Not enough for you people. I give, it's not enough fun. Watching horror while I floss. You laugh? Oh, hey, you don't understand. Okay. No. I'm talking about nose floss. You getting all this? I got it. Now, there's something you don't see every day. Now, how would you people like to see something you have never seen before? I want to hear you.
So, as I was saying, I've led quite the Renaissance life, the eclectic, unique performance art that I have utilized to try to figure out who I was and what I was going to be. And when I started doing the nose floss and did it on MTV and Showtime and everywhere else, when I did Swallowing Swords on Fire, I don't remember what else I did back in those days, I was trying to figure out who I was. I just was trying to be funny. That's hard. But the whole time that I did all of those things, I was a Christian. I was a conservative. And I was a patriot. I didn't know that's what was going to become the driving force of my show, and I didn't realize how it was going to literally culminate in me as a comic saying, this is the single most important thing to me, is the God that I know is true, and the philosophy that I know has given the most freedom and the most fairness to the most people, and to the gratefulness I had for the greatest nation the world had ever seen. And as I saw people over and over putting this nation down, making money off of being ungrateful for it, and little by little chipping away at our unity in the name of unity, in our diversity by saying we're not diverse enough, and by making people no longer accountable for their behavior or deciding that perhaps you need to earn certain things. That's where true dignity comes from. I saw my country being destroyed, and I said, I'm going to do something about it. Again, if I was in Syria or North Korea, it's a different Christianity that you have to deal with because you have a whole different government system. But I was born in the United States where I was given a First Amendment right to defend the things that I think are most sacred and holy, which is faith first and the religious liberties. Just practice that in private and in public, most importantly. You know, the founder said if we're not a religious people, we will be destroyed. This republic will not stand. And so that's why I wanted to bring up the idea that you have a way of seeing the world. I do too. And you need to fight for that, whatever that is. You need to stand for that, whatever that is. But there is a way that works. There was a cohesiveness as we've spent in this nation trying to make things work, trying to find ways to make people given as many opportunities as they could, and trying to fix the mistakes that were made. That's what we were, and we're going backwards. We are throwing everybody right back into that mess, into that pit, and saying, no, we don't want you to get better, because then we can't leverage it to extort what we want: power, money, and control. Folks, this is an America that may not survive. I don't know. I just told you, like I've always said, I'm just going to fight and be willing to die to try to keep it something for my son, who I love and make fun of, and my daughter, and my wife, and my grandchildren, and your grandchildren, and your friends, and your family too. This is what I believe. This is what I'm standing for. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be out there live, so keep it up. If you're interested in the book, says so. If you're interested in donating to this cause, let me know. I can give you a link. and we will grow this. But this is God's comic, Brad Stine, and Brad Stine Has Issues, saying PC flee is liberty. And by the way, if you're woke, go back to sleep. We've had enough. America uprising, awaken warriors to the ready. God bless you, folks. See you next week. Heck, maybe we'll have a guest. Thanks.